it just sits there and spins and does the maybe thinking about it, going live, and then I think the teleport is on. So hello everybody. Back for office hours this week, and some of you around the practice, friends of ours, have seen that I took a little bit of a tumble last week. I would give anything. You know, the candid cameras, America's Funniest Home Videos, really. I would give anything for there have to have been a little video, but I started phase 2 of 75 hard last week and went out for a run over lunch break on Wednesday, feeling so good. It was beautiful out. And all in the home stretch, right back behind the office here, and was kind of getting out of the way for a car, changing the song on my phone. It's those phones, distraction. And I wasn't paying attention to the road, hit the concrete, and you know that sound. Anybody know what sound I'm talking about? It like ugh, that sound that a joint makes when you're like, well, whatever that was, it ain't good. And proceeded at that point to kind of tuck and roll because I couldn't catch myself into the little ditch there. And so the sweet girl, she pulled back around. She's like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And I'm like, "I think so." She's like, "Can you stand up?" I was like, "I'm sure. Like, I'm just gonna take a second." And then I went to stand up and I was, kind of hot from the run and combination of all the things and the intensity of the pain and standing up was like, oh no, I cannot stand up. I could not walk this off. So I had some good friends. I had to call Dr. Derek in on his birthday to come cover patients that afternoon. Got x-rays, nothing broken. Thank God. I have hurt this ankle multiple times. So um, anyway, we went through some crutches and some non-weight bearing time, and then I want to talk about acute injuries because I know I'm not alone, and it's football season for my boys, about to be wrestling season, so it's like kind of constant acute injuries in our house, and I know many other houses because we help a lot of families at the Lighthouse. So let's talk about acute injuries. You know the RICE method. I'm hoping you've heard this: the rest, ice, compress, and elevate. And that is key there in the beginning to really help the body's processes. That rest is essential. And I go stir crazy. No athlete likes to sit still. No go-getter likes to slow down, but it is the number one thing that we've got to do. And then that elevation really helps, with circulation and reducing, the pain. Ice, I hate ice. I absolutely hate ice. It's not fun. And when we make recommendations in the office, we're like, you should put, 20 minutes of ice on that. People look at us like, yeah, no, nobody likes ice. And it is, again, an essential component to to help the body's natural processes through acute injuries. And if you can do it, every few hours, so it's repetitive ice for about 15 to 20 minutes, not longer than that, not under that. 15 to 20 is that sweet spot, and try to get it as direct as possible. I mean, with the ankle, if you can submerge it down into an ice bath, that is your best bet, to get all components of a joint like that. If it's, a shoulder, if it's, a tougher one to get into an ice bath, doing an ice bag and then using some saran wrap or an ace bandage to get it all the way around the joint so you can ice the entire circumference of the joint. This is good for the lower back, acute disc, neck, things like this as well. Ice is so helpful in helping with that, the management of the swelling and the initial pain, and then the compression. So I've lived in an ace bandage these last few days and right now, and that compression again really coming to the aid of what my body's doing. I don't have to tell this joint how to heal, even if I would have broken, the ankle, which I have. The body knows how to heal itself. And so I trust those processes. So I want to do these, simple things to support it and then, elevating it above the heart level to reduce the swelling. So RICE, rest, ice, compression, elevation, key there at first. Also a big fan of Epsom salt soaks, so I did this every single day. That warm water, again, and magnesium in those, and the Epsom salt is huge for healing processes, and I use this for healing of all things. So there's a lot of people that I've made this recommendation with in practice, and they say I don't like baths. I understand. It's 15 to 20 minutes. If you don't like it, maybe get a bucket and just do the joint or the hand, the elbow if you don't want to do a full bath. But there really are a lot of detox benefits of Epsom salts as well. So I would go for the bath if you can. The other thing that this, was a good experiment for was the LifeWave patches. So I've talked to some of you about them, and I've been using them on and off since February for different things. So if you're not familiar with LifeWave patches, I would look into them. They're really, really great for pain relief, for inflammation. They help people with sleep. There's research going and looking at how they improve energy and vitality levels and weight management, weight loss, improving mental clarity and focus. So usually when I'm not injured, I'm wearing one, either on my abdomen, on my right ovary. I had had some cyst issues. So I wear them there, or on the back of the neck is really good. These last few days, I've been putting them on the actual ankle joint. Now, I'm doing a number of different things, and I am getting my ankle adjusted. I'm going to talk about that. I am getting it adjusted as well. And so I'm doing a number of things. I can't isolate it to which thing is working the best, but I can tell you I'm like less than a week out. Tomorrow will be a week. And the healing time has been tremendous. And guys, like I'm not a young spring chicken. I consider myself, pretty healthy, but I'm 41 years old. And so I'm doing these things and my body is recuperating really fast. Topically, I love Arnica and essential oils. Lavender, peppermint are really good for pain. I use Panaway and Deep Relief from Young Living. So I'll give you some of the links to check these things out. Red light therapy is really good. I know not everybody has an at-home unit. We've made the investment because we do have athletes, because we have gone through ACL, ankle, shoulder, back with all of our boys, red lights are just phenomenal tools that you can use really easy at home. Make friends with somebody who's got one, or places like Restore have them here in town. But red light also helps speed up the body's natural processes. All of these things, rice, Epsom salt, LifeWave patches, gel, essential oils, they are all good tools, and they are all natural supports to the innate processes that the body's doing. So fundamentally, I had to laugh. I had to go, well, this was not what I wanted to happen. And I certainly didn't want to call Derek in on his day off. And I certainly don't want to miss, a shift of taking care of people at the office. But it happened. And so I do get curious and I do ask. I also want to put a link in here from Louise Hay that it's really important, I think, when we talk about body, mind, soul, when we look at, the three T's in the office: thoughts, traumas, toxins. So this was clearly a trauma. I want to, help with the toxicities in the body so my body can heal optimally. But there is an emotional component. And people like Louise Hay, the emotion code, German new medicine, all look at the emotional underlying. And so I always do when this kind of stuff comes up, I ask why. And I looked up the ankle and it looks, it invites you to look at where you're being inflexible in life, and your ability to receive and to take it easy. And I have been in a lot of hustle. So I always look. Now, do I think it's all emotional, all physical, all chemical when looking at injuries or illnesses? No, I think it's a complex kind of prism of each of them, but I want to look at each. So if you've never heard of this, I want you to just look at this. It's just curious, right? So if I hurt something, or if I have a symptom going on, I always look at this just quick reference chart as, what could an emotional meaning for this be? And it gives me some patience of like, I trust divine timing. All the things that had to happen for me to hit that spot in the concrete at the moment that I did, was it a coincidence? I don't know. Was it an invitation for me to slow down, to ask for help, to take care of myself, to cut distractions? I don't know. I like to stay curious, and I just believe that there's lessons, that there's purpose in pain. I probably told 10 of you yesterday that I think pain is a good teacher, and it's not fun hobbling around. I hate crutches. I hate slowing down. And there's been a lot of gifts over the last week of asking for help, slowing down, taking care of myself. And sometimes injuries and illnesses are the only way to get there. So that kind of segues into one of the common questions we're running into in the practice this week of common colds and these like lingering coughs. And so every case is different across the board. Can I say, exactly what it is in each case? No. So you've got to do your due diligence and turn to your village and whatever, type of practitioner or homeopathy remedies, or whether, you're turning to other moms, whatever it looks like. It is, every case is different. So to preface that, things that I will always do, no matter if it's a sprained ankle, if it's a cough, if it's a cold, if it's a headache, if it's an ache or a pain, or if it's, a digestive issue, for us and ours in our home, getting adjusted is number one, because we have radical trust and faith in the body's innate processes to heal. We want to optimize those. We want to optimize the communication between the brain and the body. I knew that I hit my ankle, rolled it, out of joint. So it's impossible that there was, proper flow going on. A little bit painful, but allowing my husband to, distract and properly adjust my ankle was key. And that's what got him into chiropractic. So he's very passionate about helping athletes. And Dr. Derek has had, different injuries in his back and knee with baseball and golf. And so they're both really, really passionate about adjusting those extremities. And or if I'm coughing, if I'm not feeling good, I'm always looking at, okay, how can I optimize my nervous system function, because it governs all other functions. It governs the immune system, it governs the respiratory system, the digestive system, the musculoskeletal system, everything roots in the brain. So no matter what, my step is I'm going to go, okay, what can I do to optimize flow? And that's why adjustments is number one for us and our kids. I'm looking at hydration and clean diet. I hit this over and over again. If our system is inflamed and we're coughing or spewing snot, we have an injury and illness going on. Clean diet is essential. So, you want to avoid dairies, you want to cut sugars and processed foods, you want to eliminate junk as much as possible, and you want to get really clean. You want all of your body's energy to go towards cleaning house. That means you don't want to bog it down with a lot of work digestively. So you want to eat simple foods, drink simple drinks, staying hydrated, the elements and the super C electrolytes, bone broths, soups, oranges, pineapple juice is great with bromelain for coughs. You want to just keep it really simple so your body doesn't have to spend all of its energy on digestion when you want its focus to be on cleaning house and your immune system function. So, clean up your diet, lymphatic massage. So, we should do a video on this. But just, coming up and, clearing out the sinuses. So I'll go below the eyes, I'll go above the eyes. I'm coming back down behind the ears, pulling, and I'm using pretty firm pressure on myself, on my kids. I'm really kind of going, okay, let's wake up. You can do tapping in these areas. And then I'm going to come down in the clavicle, little bump that we got here, massage here, because that's where everything drains out of the throat, the head, and the neck. So I'm going to stimulate drainage here. I'm going to tap in my armpits. I'm going to tap in the front of my abdomen, in the back of my abdomen, down in my groin. You can look up, you can Google, the lymphatic chain. All over YouTube, there's different massage videos about working your lymphatic system as well. So, highly recommend massage because it gets that lymphatic system moving. These things are lingering because we have stagnant chi in traditional Chinese medicine, they would call it, but stagnant flow. For we just need to get things moving. And so, that lymphatic massage and rebounding. So, some hopping. I'm on one leg right now. But, you guys have seen me do the kangaroo, but do some bouncing, some rebounding if you've got a little trampoline or a big trampoline, and that also stimulates the lymphatic system to do its job. We talked about essential oils. You have the link to our favorite oils and the key things. There's a kids kit, highly recommend it. Lingering coughs and colds, make your warm water with honey and lemon, local elderberry. You can swish salt water, run your humidifiers, and then you want to get rid of, the any toxins in the air. So if you have the plug-in air fresheners, get rid of those. Essential oil diffusing, great. Raven and R.I.C.E are two of my favorites for this kind of stuff. Diffusing is good. These, Glade plugins, those stuff, they're bad. They're just bad. The candles, I love some of the fall candles, the pumpkins, the apples. Like I get it, I love it, but most of them are horrible for us, and they're especially bad when we're trying to purge, through an upgrade and a cough and a cold. So get rid of that stuff. Keep your house really clean. Consider an air doctor or what making an investment in an air purifier that will clean up the air in your house spaces, and then don't push. Rest is essential here. We've got to again take all of the body's energy and put it at healing. In our culture, we push, we grind, we go. And so if you don't feel good, if your kid doesn't feel good, I understand that it is inconvenient to have to take a break, to take a minute, but oftentimes, if we just rest for half a day or a day, it could save us a week of productivity versus trying to take something over the counter to dry it out and just push through. So, really consider slowing down and and giving yourself a minute. And then again, go back to that Louise Hay chart. So, I mean, everything is on there. I've got it pulled up here because I was just going to read off a few. So it's an A through Z list. And I mean, allergies, it says denying your own power. Anemia is yes, but attitude, a lack of joy, a fear of life, not feeling good enough. The ankle is inflexibility and guilt. Ankles represent the ability to receive pleasure. Anxiety, not trusting the flow. That's just A, right? You come into cough, a desire to bark at the world. Listen to me. Colds says, too much going on all at once, mental confusion. Scrolling down, I'm looking at, if you have an injury to the hands, the ability to hold or handle, to clutch and grip. If you have headaches, invalidating the self criticism, fear. Going down to ovaries, represent points of creation and creativity. The pancreas represents the sweetness of life. I mean, guys, everything is on like this little list. I like it because it's so simple. It's A to Z, so you can kind of check it out. And then if you wanna dive deeper, Louise Hay wrote, Heal Your Body and Heal Your Life. They're phenomenal. In German New Medicine, so, I've referenced this on a few videos. There was a doctor who started studying, he was looking at, I think it was testicular cancer initially, and how all these patients, like, what did they have in common? Like, what was going on where these people, and he started to see that they all had very similar traumas of loss in their life, particularly of either a parent or a child, related to the reproductive organ, right? So there was this shock, there was this insult. He himself had been diagnosed with testicular cancer and had lost his son in a car accident. It was a very traumatic, sudden loss. And so it's rooted in the idea that we go through these conflicts, we go through these traumas, and they are a shock to our system. And because we can't just pause the spinning of the world and the going of life in that moment, we suppress some or all of the emotions that we deal with in that moment. It's too big to handle. And so, Melissa Sell is phenomenal with this. She makes a lot of different videos. And the thing is, I get that some people, they'll look at this and go, okay, this is woo woo, this is kind of out there. Um, and all I can tell you is that when I look at people who heal well, people who have overcome tremendous odds, when I sit close to the people I've interviewed on podcasts, when I've spoke at different events, when I sit next to the people that are writing these books and they're experiencing these big miracles, these stage 3, 4 cancer reversals, um, they are including that triad of I'm going to look at the physical, I'm going to look at the chemical, and I'm going to look at the emotional. The emotional component is probably one of the most under talked about, under nurtured pieces of healing, I think. And so even if today's video is just an invitation to get curious about that, then this video was of purpose. So I'm going to include some of those links in those show notes. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, particularly about how many people I have coming in talking about immune system issues, coughs, colds, COVID, all of it. The books that I'm just going to keep coming back to. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper, but I'm going to go fast about there's 4 books that I'm like, God, if you get some of the big ideas in these books, pick one to start with, skim it, listen to the audiobook, check out, stuff on YouTube. In today's world, there's really no excuse not to tap into this information that's out there. So, number one, The Truth About Contagions by Tom Cowan and Sally Morrell, with the Weston A. Price Foundation. And so the whole point is that it challenges everything that we have learned and been taught about contagion and illness. So this goes to the heart of the germ theory and terrain theory conversation. And I think it's a complex issue. I think we're in the middle of understanding, the full truth, but what we do know is that the germ theory approach solely it is not accurate. And everything within medicine in traditional treatments has been built on the germ theory. But if we were inaccurate in our assumptions that we made at that premise, that means that everything built on top of it is inaccurate. And so within this book, they really go into it. I think it's very simple to read. I've gotten really positive feedback from people in the practice. They dig into the history about how the germ theory came about. They redefine what contagion even is. So when I hear people say, I have this or I had COVID, I invite them, like, what's that mean to you? Do you think that, and I'm literally just being curious because I want people to start to just think about what we're saying because those beliefs dictate our reality. If I believe that there's this germ floating out there and that germ lands on me or whatever we think, we come in contact with this germ and then we get sick, there's literally no freedom in that life because you're constantly on the defense in the world around you. And I just don't believe that can be true. I think that we know we are made up of millions, trillions of small cells, of bacterias, of, viruses and, that our ecosystem, fungi, I mean, we are one with nature, not at war with nature. And this book just breaks it down. So it takes us back into terrain, which to me is the gateway to freedom. Because if I double down on my terrain, on my child's terrain, then I'm not living in fear because of the germ theory. So it breaks down terrain theory, germ theory. It looks at nutrition and lifestyle and how we can improve natural immunity. It also looks at how we all responded to the pandemic and what maybe could have been done differently, or how it all would have been different had we looked at a terrain approach in conjunction or alternatively versus this like germ fear that we all have been living in of sorts for the last 4 years. It's a lot of empowerment. They critique, the role of vaccines because again, if germs and contagions aren't what we thought they were, and it's not the sum total of how we get sick, why we get sick, because it's not, then all of these treatments and these interventions that we do are based in shaky ground. They're not based in full science. They might be based in a then past understanding of science, but it's not accurate. It's not full. And that means we have to make some changes and we need to unlearn and learn some things. So that was Truth About Contagion. Love that one. Second one, because there are a lot of people who have these questions about vaccines specifically, dissolving illusion. So this is disease, vaccines, and the forgotten history. So this goes a little bit deeper, a lot deeper. Surrounding it. And what I would invite, regardless of what you think your stance is, I would just ask how much research and understanding you've done. I'm never going to tell people what they should do. God gave your children to you. God gave your body to you. The decisions that you need to make are yours to make. And I think shame is such a virus in our culture and such a driving force of why we do what we do in conventional medicine. And I want no part of that. I want to invite, the curiosity and why do you believe what you believe? Where did that come from? How do you know it's true? And what if it's not? What if it's not fully true? Would you still make the choices that you are? And if when we learn the different risks and, you know, the long term trajectory that certain choices put us on, are we going to keep doing it? And if vaccines and things work so well, why are our kids so sick? And these books speak right into it. So it goes into, mainly that we just have more work and understanding and unlearning to do when it comes to the history of the germ theory, of terrain theory, of sanitation and nutrition and public health, and how we got here, of the 1986 Act, which, if you don't know, was put in 1986, that gave blanket immunity to pharmaceutical companies for vaccines, because the pharmaceutical companies and the medical doctors said, we think everybody, all children need this set number of vaccine, which is astronomically grown since 1986. The list keeps getting bigger. But they came to the government and they said, listen, public health, we've got to do this. We've got to put it out there. But if they're unavoidably unsafe, was the verbiage that they used. Vaccines are unavoidably unsafe. So we need your help. We need immunity so that we can do this thing and keep this nation safe. So we want no wrongdoing. If someone gets sick, if someone gets injured, if someone dies, we are not liable. And the government gave it to them in 1986, and it changed the game. And then that's why people like Bill Gates have said, like, man, vaccines are one of the most profitable industries. And that's why we see so many being rapidly added, the ones fast tracked to the recommended schedule for kids these days. And so it's asking questions of how do we get here? When did we start doing vaccines? Why did we start doing vaccines? Why are there so many on the list now? Are they safe? Is the schedule safe? Are they safe for my child? If it's not one size fits all, if we understand that we are, very unique creatures, then is the same shot that's given to, a 2-month-old safe for a 200-pound man? And how does that make sense? And is their immune system ready for the amount that we're giving them in the short amount of time in conjunction with one another? I mean, there's so many questions to be asked, in my opinion. And then what's the long-term effect on the child's immune system when we insult it with, because it does insult the body and its processes. It stimulates it with artificial immunity and has to get a response. And so that, what happens long term when we're doing this? And so, it's, if you have any questions, this is a good book to start with. There's just a lot in there. The third book is Why We Get Sick. Love this one. And this one takes a little bit different term. It's similar to Casey Means Good Energy. A lot of it is, rooted in metabolic health. So we're looking at our response to insulin and what happens with elevated blood sugars, and the fact that in our culture we have this super high carbohydrate load, and what's happening, how that messes with our insulin resistance and then leads to poor metabolic health, and how that's tied to literally every single chronic disease that we have in our culture. So we can look at heart disease, we can look at cancer, and our diet, and the just kind of approach to health in general, because we're medicating all these diseases instead of rooting our focus in nutrition, diet, exercise, hydration. And we've been told a lot of things that just flat aren't true, that fat is bad, fat is good. And that one's hit here, and in the truth about contagion, and some healthy fats that you really need to be ingesting. And a lot of people, when they go for weight loss, they're cutting all the wrong things and they're adding all the wrong things. And so if we just reverse engineer some of the things that we've been taught that aren't truly accurate, and we understand, it's like, you got to, I love how Rory Vaden says, do the thing today that will save you time tomorrow. I I didn't used to love reading, but now I love it. So I want to be able to read 5 books at one time, because there's things I want to learn, but I want to learn them well. And so I would pick one of these, that speaks the most to you and where you're at. If you're looking at, weight loss, weight management, healing chronic disease, hormone balance, then I would start with Why We Get Sick. If you really want to understand what happened through COVID, and how to keep your family healthy, and what germ theory and terrain theory is all about, then I would start with the truth about contagion. If you have been on the fence and you see the discord around vaccines and you want to know what your opinion is, instead of just assuming somebody else's opinion, mine or anybody else's, then Dissolving Illusions is good. And then that last one, I keep talking about it, but man, if you know anybody with cancer, please, please, please share the book Chris Beat Cancer with them, because it is the most, I think, organized, concise, well written, easy to read. There's just so much in it. Now, do I think his approach to diet and nutrition is 100%? He was plant-based, no meat. Do I think that's good for everybody? I don't. But but that's okay. Like you can disagree with parts of a book and still love the premise of the book and the things that are shared. So he talks about Chris was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer at age 26. So he shares his battle, his alternative treatments, diet, nutrition, detoxification, mindset, spiritual health, support systems. Like remember when we talked about physical, chemical, emotional, he puts it all into this book. And it's a big idea because again, if our premise about cancer is wrong or not fully true, I don't believe that if we just chemo and radiation and cut with surgeries, that cures cancer. We've got to get to the root. We've got to get underneath it and really understand why cancer is happening. I think that the body is intelligent. I think symptoms are intelligent. I think if something's happening, it could be an invitation instead of an act of war. And I say that with so much love. I've lost a lot of people in the cancer conversation and it's not an easy one to declare like, "Hey, I think we're doing this ass backwards," but I think we're pretty backwards, and it doesn't always end the way that we want to. I'm very good friends with people who they did all the things and they married the world and they still ultimately went home to be with God. So I also think sometimes it's our time to go. But about cancer, whether we're talking about cancer, we're talking about coughs, we're talking about injuries, whatever it is, I just don't think that historically we've seen the picture or that our premise that we're basing all of our beliefs and decisions around is fully accurate. I think now is a time of curiosity, of learning and unlearning, and then of patience because you learn these things and then it takes time to implement them and integrate them. And I remember, kind of waking up about different things and I knew it and I was deciding things and I was, eating different, moving different. It might be a month or 2 months before you see the change, feel the change in your body because we've been living a certain way for months, for years, for decades. And although we are wildly, infinitely intelligent within, it does, healing takes time. And so, patience and grace is key. Having a good supportive village is key. And so I hope that today we talked about some things that benefited you. And if you have any tips or tools that you want to share with each other in the comments, please. If you have tips for those acute injuries, the rolled ankles, send them my way. If you have some things that are working for your coughs and colds right now, send them our way. And you know, cancer, germ theory, terrain theory. If you've got questions, if you've got supports, please share them in the comments. Love you guys. I'll see you next week.